All right, I want to say ETM Hotep and welcome. Appreciate anyone who's tuning in on this Sunday evening, and I hope everyone's having a happy holidays, be it that you celebrate Christmas or you celebrate Kwanzaa or any other particular holiday, even if it's just a celebration of the winter time, the winter solstice and things. I hope everyone's having a happy holidays. And so again, this is your brother Wudjau, and I am doing this live just to briefly touch on a topic post that I put up on Facebook that you will see on obviously on my page. I was asked to kind of elaborate on it a little more if I could, and so instead of typing and elaborating to one person who asked, I rather go live and elaborate a little bit more so that everyone could benefit, for those who may be looking into this issue. All right, so the title of this particular video is, does the word Tamahu actually mean Europeans or white people? All right, and I posted the initial post some time ago. I had posted information about this a long while ago, but I recently posted it again because every now and then it comes up, and sometimes it's based on questions that I'm asked in my study courses or just in general online. And so I like to share information, and I like for questions like that or just good questions in general to be seen, and so that in hopes that everyone can benefit from them. All right, people who may have had the same question. All right, so I posted it again because it's come up, this word Tamahu, and there are people who use this word for quite a while to reference Europeans or white people. All right, so that's the reason behind my recent post of it. All right, so whether you're watching live, if you're watching live, share this video if you think someone else may be interested in the conversation, or once I'm done, it's going to be archived and you can share it that way as well. All right, so again, the question is, does the word Tamahu mean Europeans or white people? All right, so I'm just going to go straight to it, and I'm going to share my post first, and I'll start there, my recent post. All right, so this is the post. I posted it recently, December 21st. All right, and so I'm just going to read it, and it's the same post that's on my screen, on my timeline. And so I say, for those who have asked me about the use of the word Tamahu being used to refer to Europeans or whites, one of the sources of that use is from Gerald Massey in his work, A Book of the Beginnings, on page 27. And I have pictured, because on my post I had put the picture of the page up there. All right. Massey incorrectly identified one of the four nations represented in the tomb of Seti I in a text called the Book of Gates, where the Remech, who most people know as the ancient Egyptians, are represented along with three of their neighboring nations: the Nahesiu, those who are south of Kemet; the Amu, who are those who are from Western Asia, referred to as Asiatics, and then the Tamahu, those who are west of Kemet in a place known today as Libya. All right. Massey incorrectly created meanings of created whites for the word Tamahu, which has nothing to do with the word created or the word white. It is the name of one of the groups of Libyans, and the other being the Chehenu. So our goal, and I continue to say, our goal is to raise an army of scribes so that we can get to know Kemet intimately through its language, which is the DNA of culture, let it be known. All right. And that last sentence is referring to the fact that, our aim is to teach. And I've been teaching the language for a number of years now. And so this is my goal, and others share in that goal, to raise an army of scribes who can deal with the language and get to know the culture of ancient Egypt or Kemet intimately. And we don't have to use guesswork or rely on other sources. All right. We can go directly to the culture itself. All right. So that was the post that was recently placed there. So I'm just going to elaborate a little bit. So now under the post, I had the picture of the actual page from Massey's work, and I'm going to show that again in a few seconds. But before I do that, I want to show everyone where Massey is getting this from. All right. Well, actually, let me go to his page first, and we'll read the first paragraph from his page, his book. So this is from page 27 of A Book of the Beginnings by Gerald Massey. Okay, and so I'll just read. It says, the Egyptians identify themselves on the monuments as Rut. A pictorial representation is found on the tomb of Seti I of 4 races of people arranged in groups of 4 men each. These are the Nasi, and he has Negroes, the Hemu, men of light brown hue, with blue eyes and hair in a bag, and then the Tamahu, who are fair as Europeans, and the Rut, who are the Egyptians. So he's naming them Nasi, Negroes, Hemu, men of light brown hue, with blue eyes and hair in a bag. Then he mentions another group, Tamahu, who are fair as Europeans, and the Rut, as he's calling, who are the Egyptians. Then he goes on to say, these are typical groups, not meant merely for conquered races, as may be gathered from the signification of their names. The Tamahu are light-complexioned people. In Egyptian, Tama means people and created. Hu is white, light, ivory. The Tamahu are the created white people. Na is black, as in ink. Ne is a black bird. Su is the person or birth. The Nasu, one black born, or in Egyptian phrase, black from the egg, Su. Him is the rudder, the paddle, fish. Hemi, to steer. The Hemu thus indicated are the sailors, seafarers, the people of the isles of the Gentiles, Genesis 10, might be rendered in Egyptian by the isles of the Amu or Hemu. The hieroglyphic Hem is the sign of a water frontier. All right. So, I want to stop there for a second because I want to show everyone what he's talking about in terms of when he says here that it's a pictorial representation as found in the tomb of Seti I of the 4 races arranged in 4 groups of 4 men each. All right. And then we'll get back to his attempted breakdown of these words. All right. So I want to switch back over. And so this is a now this is a remake of the tomb that he is speaking about. All right. And so you see these men all lined up here. And in the actual tomb itself, there is a corner right here. If you all can see my cursor, there's a corner right here. So what we're looking at this reproduction here is showing them all in a straight line, but in reality, this portion is on one wall and the rest of it is on an adjacent wall, where the corner of that wall is right here. Okay, and I'm going to show you a picture of the tomb itself. Okay, the actual picture. But for now, I'm showing you what he means by there are 4 nations represented by 4 figures each. So there's 16 men here. All right, 4 by 4. And so the first group, by the way, over here on the far left is Heru. Okay, and you see his name in the glyphs here, Heru. But the first group here are the ancient Egyptians. The next group here are the Asiatics. This next group here are those who live south of Kemet. People like to refer to them as Nubians, but that wasn't a term that was used by the Egyptians. They were called the Nehesi or Nehesiu. All right. And then lastly, you have the Tamahu. So it's this group here, the last group of 4 that Massey is referring to when he says Tamahu. Okay, so he takes this as Tamahu. So below that, I have supplied the glyphs for these particular names. And so if you look at here, if you look between each figure, you're going to see the glyphs in between these figures. And so the figures are facing to the right, and the glyphs are also facing to the right. And so here, this is what we refer to as retrograde inscriptions. All right, and that's another subject that I don't want to get diverted into to be too technical. But nevertheless, you'll see the spelling of these groups with the glyphs in between each of these figures. So in the first 4, we have these glyphs here, and I reproduce them below. So we have the Remech. Okay, this is how we transliterate it. And this last row here is typically how you'll see it spelled in Egyptological spelling and pronunciations. All right. So just as a side note, all of the pronunciations that we have for Egyptian words, even the word Hotep, the word Ankh, the word for health, Seneb, and all of these words that you hear everyone say, they are never meant to be taken as though they're historically accurate. Okay, I always like to point that out. I always like to point that out. Let me just make sure that I am still live here. Looks like my feed, something happened to my feed. So yeah, also what I forgot to do is just to make sure that I'm being seen and heard properly. So if someone in the chat could please do me that service and let me know that you all can hear me and that you all can see my screen fine. All right, before I continue. Okay, someone said loud and clear. All right, so I'm going to continue. For whatever reason, my video has stopped when I'm monitoring it. All right. So let's continue. All right. So as I was saying, the glyphs for the groups are below each group. The transliteration is below the glyphs, and then the typical Egyptological spelling is beneath that. And so what I was saying was that whenever you hear people pronounce the ancient Egyptian words and language, etc., we have to understand that these pronunciations are just a convention and they're tentative. All right, they're not meant to. They're not meant to be taken as historically accurate. All right, but it doesn't have anything to do with us understanding the meanings. And I like to say that because people tend to confuse pronunciations with the meanings. All right, and how the language is learned and used today. Okay, so beneath the first group we have the Remich, and you see the glyphs between them. Then the next group of 4 are the Amu, and you see the glyphs here, and you see the glyphs in between these figures. So we have 1, 2, and then 3, 4. We have 1, 2, 3, 4. So the Amu, these are your Asiatics. Next to them, or in front of them, we have the Nehesu. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 glyphs. And below it we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. These 3 strokes are those last 3 strokes there. So the Nehesu. All right. People, like I say again, people like to refer to them as Nubians, although the Egyptians never called them that. All right. And lastly, we have the Chemehu. All right. We have 3 glyphs, 1, 2, and 3. We have 1, 2, and 3. Chemehu. All right. So it's this last group that Massey is referring to. And because they're depicted more pale in terms of the pigment used to depict them, is why he's saying what he's saying. All right. Initially. Okay, so let's go back to Massey. So this is what he was referring to. Okay, when he says this, the tomb of Seti I in those four groups. So this is what I showed. So now, mind you, he, the group of Amu, he has here Hemu. Okay, so he has a completely incorrect word for that group. It's the Amu, and it's not him at all. And how we know that is because if you look at what he says about the him down here, he says him is the rudder to paddle, fish, hemi, to steer. The hemu thus indicated are sailors, seafarers, and people of the isles. And then he tries to link it to the Bible, Genesis 10, and it might be rendered by the isles of the Amu or the Hemu. And then he says the hieroglyphic hem is the sign of a water frontier. And so I want you all to see, let's go back. He's referring to this group here, which are not the Hemu, but the Amu. And there's nothing in the glyphs that represent water. This first glyph is a throw stick. It's a weapon. It's not a rudder. It's not fish or what he said when he in reference to is being a sign of a water frontier. It has nothing to do with that at all. Okay, so I'm just pointing out the mistakes in the text, in Massey's text. All right. So he has the transliteration incorrect. It's not Hemu at all. And then he's identifying glyphs that are not even there. Okay, so I just want to make sure everyone understands that. All right. Now, let's go back to his page again. He refers to the ancient Egyptians as the root or rut. And further down here, he says the word rut has various meanings, all significant when applied to the Egyptians by themselves. Rut is to retain the form, be carved in stone, a footstool, a pair of feet, cause to do, plant, grow, repeat. one hieroglyphic sign of Rut is an implement for pegging down and making fast in the earth to retain animals in one spot. All right. Now, I want to stop here for a second. Let's go back. He says the word Rut has various meanings, all significant when applied to the Egyptians by themselves. Rut is to retain the form, be carved in stone, a footstool, or a pair of feet, cause to go, plant, grow, repeat. Now, Gerald Massey is incorrect in this as well. Okay, so let's go back to the picture here. This is what he's referring to, the Egyptians themselves. And so what he's calling Rut is actually Remech. So he completely is missing the M in the word. But there's nothing about feet in this word. What he's actually referring to is the word for foot. Okay? Which the word for 2 feet is redwi. And so he's using Rut as in red, which is the word for foot. But that's not this word whatsoever. There's nothing in the glyphs or anything that would indicate that particular word. This word here, remich, is with the mouth, as you see, is an open mouth, and you see a tethering rope here. This glyph here is what we refer to as a monoliteral, and what that means simply is that it represents one consonant, and a consonant is a palatal, voiced palatal explosive, which is the word ch. Is a sound ch, like in church. Okay, and we transliterate this particular glyph or this sound with a TCH, as you see right here. We transliterate it with a capital T, or as you see it on my screen here, a T with a line under it to indicate that it's the ch instead of the regular T. Okay, notice that it's over here as well. And Tamahu, see the same glyph here? The same glyph, which is a tethering rope. You have the T with the underline under it, and over here, the tethering rope, T with the underline. All right? It has the ch sound as in church. So this is where we have remech. This is why we say Tamahu. Okay? That is what he's referring to. And let's go back to his book here. So this is what he's referring to when he says that one hieroglyphic sign of Rut is an implement for pegging down and making fast in the earth to retain animals in one spot. So what he's saying here is that one of the signs in the word that he's referring to is something that's used to tie animals in one spot, to retain animals in one spot. Okay, and for that portion, that's correct, because this tethering, that's why it's referred to as a tethering rope. It's a rope that's used to restrain animals, to tether animals to a fixed position so they can't roam around and things like that. Okay, but I want you to understand that he's mixing what this glyph is from a word for feet and foot. Has nothing to do with any of that. Okay, that's not how the language works, and this is not even within the glyphs that we're looking at or in the text itself. Okay, and this is what happens when we don't know the language or don't know how the language works. Okay, and we have to understand that Gerald Massey was not a linguist, and he was not a person who was competent and proficient in the Egyptian language. All right, so to his credit, he's not an expert in that field, and I don't know of him to proclaim that he was, etc., etc. But we have to understand that because of that, mistakes can be made, and thus mistakes were made. All right, and I'm pointing these out so that our community can know better and then do better. All right, so anyway, that's the remage, and I just wanted to point those things out. So now when it comes to the Tamahu, again, he is let's go back to his text. So let's go back to his text and let me scroll back up. Now he breaks down this word, the Tamahu here. They're light complexioned people. In Egyptian, Tama means people. Now see, this is the mistake that's made, that he's completely mixing words. It's like for example, let's see, what can I use as an example in English? It's like taking an English word and let's see, what's a good word? Okay, let's just take a word, random word, risk. R-I-S-K. Okay, R-I-S-K. So that's like me taking that word risk and taking the I-S out of it and saying that's the word is. That the word is inside of the word risk. And that would be completely false. There's no way I can argue that the verb, the to be verb is, which people call a copula, or the to be verb is with inside the word risk. At best, all I can say is that the consonants, or the vowel I and the consonant S, is used, those two characters are used to spell the word risk. I can't say that the word is in the word risk. You understand? And so this is the mistake that he's making by trying to break down the word Tamahu and saying Tama means people and created. And then Hu is white, light, or ivory. See, that's not how languages work. That's not how it's done. And so this is the mistake. This is the big mistake that's being made. And from that mistake, he's creating a fictitious meaning of the word. Tama meaning people, Hu meaning white, light, ivory, and therefore, if you put it together, it means created white people. So you can see his logic is based off of a complete error on his part. Okay, and so what we have in our community now are people who are following behind Massey and are using his logic and his meanings. And today you have those of us in our community that are using this word Tamahu for Europeans and whites incorrectly. Okay, so we have to clarify that. We have to make sure we upgrade our information and move forward with accuracy as much as possible. So hopefully, my post itself, that's one why I shared this information in a Facebook post to begin with, to help inform people and hopefully see that we can act accordingly, and when we know better, we do better. All right, so just wanted to kind of show and share that and elaborate this way. Now the same thing with the rest of it. Na is black ink. He's doing the same thing, and you cannot do that. So let's go back to the picture here. So on these pictures, these are complete words, and these are representations of ethnicities. These are ethnonyms for groups of people, because you're looking at people and they're naming them. All right, and as a side note, a brief little detour side note, notice that when the ancient Egyptians want to identify themselves, and they want to do so in the context of differentiating themselves from other nations, I want everyone to note the name that they chose. Okay? You don't see Kemet here. You don't see the word Kemet. You don't see the word Kemetiu. or none of that whenever they want to identify themselves in relation to differentiating themselves from other nations. They use the word remech. This is their ethnonym. This is their ethnic designation. Okay, I want everybody to understand that. And mind you, what I'm showing you all is only from one particular tomb, the tomb of Seti I. And by the way, Seti I is the father of Ramses II, the great Ramses II. All right, the popular one that everyone is familiar with. All right, so I want everybody to understand that this particular text is coming from a text called the Book of Gates. This is the 5th hour of the Book of Gates. Now, this is not only in this tomb, it's also in the tomb of Ramses III. Well, let me go in order. We have Seti I, which is what I'm showing you. Then we have the tomb of Meneptah. And then it's also in the tomb of Ramses III. So this depiction, these depictions here, or this text, and showing these 4 different nations or ethnicities, it's located in 3 tombs. Okay, as far as illustrated. Now the text itself is found in more, the glyphs that you see above. But in terms of an illustration and figures that go along with it, it's in 3 tombs. Okay, so you can look it up. The Book of Gates of Seti I, the Book of Gates of Meneptah, the Book of Gates of Ramses III. All right, so I'm just letting you all know what you can go to seek out and investigate. All right, so I want everyone to understand the word that they chose to identify themselves is not Kemet, it's not Kemetiu, it is Remech. Okay, but now all of that was a sidebar. So now let's get back to the point. Now, what I would like to do is take a portion of it. Now, what I've done is I've taken the left hand side here where you see the Remech, and so I simply kind of made it bigger. I enlarged it, and hopefully you all can see that. And hopefully it's clear enough that you all can see it. And that's I guess that's pretty much the clearest that I can get it. And so what I've done is I've numbered the columns that are there for the glyphs themselves. All right. And for those of you who are watching or who may be watching in the archives, if you're able to read the glyphs, then you can follow along with me. But what I would like to do is to show you all, or tell you all and show you all what it actually says. All right. So let me just get my cursor back. Where are we? Okay, so hopefully you all can see my cursor. Now these glyphs may be blurry showing up on Facebook. I'm not sure how it's showing up, but I have the columns numbered. So it's from 1 to 10. Excuse me, 1 to 13. Okay. So now, again, this video, I'm not trying to teach people how to read the glyphs or get into any details of that. I have courses. I teach courses, teach classes, and I even have other videos that kind of touch on some of those basics. So what I'm going to do is just convey to you what's being said. All right. And go column by column. All right. So firstly, we have the deity here. We have Heru. All right. He's holding a staff, and you see his name in front of him. You see the falcon. And for those who are familiar with the Gardner codes, this would be G5, the falcon bird. All right. So this is Heru. All right. And so, and then in front of him, we have the Remech, and then 2 of the Amu. So I'm just letting y'all know who the figures are. All right. But in terms of the glyphs themselves, we have in the first column, we have Now, mind you, where a column ends and another one begins, it doesn't necessarily start or stop a word or start or stop a sentence. So I just want to give you all a forewarning that words and even sentences and so on may run from one column into the other and so on. So I'm going to just go through the columns in their order. All right. So we have, in the first column, we have in, heru, inin, and then we have ni. Okay. And it says, heru says to the herd, and then the next word is awit, ra. So, I don't know what happened to my cursor here. Hopefully y'all can see my cursor now. So we have in heru, then we have nin, and then we have awit ra. So this is heru says to the herd of ra. The word awit is herd. So, you know, people, I guess Christians would be familiar with this concept where people may be referred to as a flock, and then they're being shepherded, or they belong to someone, and the person they belong to is their shepherd. And so this is why these groups are considered herd or cattle in that sense. All right, not literally, of course, but so this is what this is saying. All right, the herd of Ra, and it's saying Emiyu Duat. So it's saying the herd of Ra who dwell in the Duat. I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with Duat, the underworld or the afterlife. Okay, so that's what we're dealing with here. This is the fifth hour of the Book of Gates that's in the Duat. Okay, so it's saying who dwell in the Duat, and it's the Duat, and then it says Kemet in this fourth column here. This is the word Kemet, and this is the word Desheret. Okay, Desheret. So these are two places. So three places we have who dwell in the Duat, Kemet, and Desheret. Okay, so Kemet, we all familiar with Kemet. Desheret, we should be familiar with that. That's the desert area. Okay, I want you all to understand what's being said. Then it goes on. So we have Emiyu, Duat, Kemet, Desheret. Then we have Aku and Chen, Awit Ra. All right. So altogether, that's saying who are in the underworld, in Kemet, and in the Desheret. And then Aku is the word for transfiguration. And then Enchen is to you. So transfiguration to you. Again, it repeats. The herd of Ra. Awit Ra. All right. And then it goes on to say, Keper im a kenti pet. All right. So it says the herd of Ra. And then an epithet. It says, which came into being by means of the Great One. Okay. And it's the Great One, and then it's Kentipet, which means foremost of the heavens, and that's an epithet of Ra. Okay, so it's the Great One, foremost of heaven. So this herd, these people here, came into being by means of what's being described as Ah, which is the Great One, and then an epithet, foremost of heaven. Then it goes on to say Chau, which is breath, the word for breath or wind. And then in Feneju Chin, which is your noses. And the next word is Senfekfek in Wetu Chin, which is loosening of your mummy wrappings. The word Wetu is mummy wrappings. Okay, and Chin is you alls. All right, that's a pronoun for you all. And Wetu Chen would be you all's mummy wrappings. Okay, so I want you all to follow that. And then we have Nechen Remit, which means you all are Remit, which means the tears. And I want you to understand, Remit means tears. And then Aket-i imrenchen ni remech. And what that's saying is, you all are the tears, and then Aketi, of my brilliant eye. That's what the word Aketi means in this particular instance, my brilliant eye. And then M is in, and then Renchen, you all's name, ni remech. All right. I'm not sure if my cursor has been showing. Okay, so I'm trying to, if my cursor wasn't showing, I'll repeat or show where I was speaking about here. So we have, just to show again, this last column 13 is where you see the word remech again. Note, see the mouth here, the tethering rope here, the seated man and woman, and then the 3 strokes. Mouth, tethering rope, seated man, woman, 3 strokes. And this is exactly what you see between these figures. The mouth, tethering rope, seated man, woman, 3 strokes. So prior to that, you have the remech. And notice that the determinative here, and for those who may not understand what a determinative is, briefly, a determinative is a glyph that comes at the end of words that help us determine the meaning of the word. So these determinatives themselves are not transliterated and they're not pronounced. So determinatives is only for a script feature. It's only a feature in the writing system. All right. So it alerts us as readers or anyone reading it to allow us to help us to determine the meaning of the word. Okay. They're also called classifiers. They allow us to classify the word into their proper classification and categories. All right. But they're nicknamed determinatives because of what I just said and explained. So, all right. But like I said, that's a whole lesson. But I just wanted to show you that the determinative here is an eye with tears coming from it. You have 3 tears that are coming from it. And the word remech is the word for tears or crying. Okay. And so the reason why I'm emphasizing this is because the remech in another text, they have always said in their cosmogonical view and cosmological text and their cosmological view, they always refer to themselves as the emanations of Ra. In the text, they say that they come from the tears of Ra. And within the story, Ra cries. Okay, one of his eyes, now this is all in a mythos. One of his eyes leaves to go find someone, and when it comes back, the eye finds itself being replaced. And Ra weeps, and tears comes from his eyes, and then human beings or the Egyptians themselves emerge from his tears. And so this is why this is what this text is saying. This is saying the same thing. It's saying that you were created here, remech, from my brilliant eye. Here we have Aket-ti or Aket-i, which would be my brilliant eye. And then M, which is in, and then Renchen, which is you all's name. The word Ren means name. Here in the 12th column, we have Ren. And then we have Chen, which is a suffix pronoun for you all. So you all's name. So in you all's name, and then ni, of. This last water ripple is ni, of. And then remech. So you can see the connection between remech and remech. Tears, and then the Egyptians themselves. All right. So I want to make it perfectly clear that the Egyptians all day, every day, at all times, refer to themselves as the emanations of Ra. They came from the tears of Ra. When they wanted to describe themselves in terms of nationality, or excuse me, ethnicity, to differentiate from other ethnicities, they did not refer to themselves as Kemet or Kemetiu or Kamau or Kemu or all any other Kems. They referred to themselves as Remech. Okay? So now, I just want to quickly show you all the actual tomb itself, because, like I said, this is a particular remake, and I only showed this because it's clear, and it's a remake where there's no damage here. So here on my screen is the actual primary. Okay? And it's very clear on my screen, and hopefully it's clear on Facebook and you all can see it. All right, so this is the actual tomb of Seti the First, this particular section. So let me point to it, and hopefully y'all can see my cursor. I'm having an issue with the cursor here. This is the wall I was referring to, and here's the corner on the right hand side. This is the corner. So the wall, so there's two walls that are joined by a corner here, and so this is why when you see this reproduced, they always break it right here, because there's a natural break, you know, in being it's in the corner of this particular here section. But we have Heru right here again, and here the glyphs, you can see the glyphs really clear here. So we have in Heru, Nin, in Awit Ra. So says Heru to the herd of Ra, or the cattle of Ra. And then Emiu, and then the rest is a little damage. You can see portions of the word Duat. Emiu Duat, and then we have Kemet, then we have Desheret. Everything that I mentioned before. Okay? And so let's go to the part that I was referring to. So here we have Remich. You see the eye here with the 3 tears coming from it. And before it we have the word Remich. And then we have Aket, and then E, my brilliant eye. And then we have M, and then Renshin, again, you all's name, and then Ni, and then Remech. You see Remech clear as day right here, where my cursor is. All right. So I just wanted to kind of elaborate on the fact that Gerald Massey was incorrect in all of his erroneous definitions. They were completely erroneous. The word Remech has nothing to do with feet. It has nothing to do with walking, feet, planting, or growing. It has everything to do with the tears of Ra, as this text is actually telling you. Okay? And then there's another text, as I said, and to name that particular text is called The Book of Knowing the Transformations of Ra and Overthrowing Apep. You can find that particular text, a translation of it, by Budge, E.A. Wallace Budge, in his book called The Egyptian Gods, Volume 1, page 308. All right, I don't have it typed out on the screen right here, but I'm saying it, so hopefully you all can write it down if you want to look into that. So again, the other text that this is referencing and coincide with is a text called The Book of Knowing the Transformations of Ra and Overthrowing of Apep. And you can find a translation of it in E.A. Wallace Budge's works, particularly a book that he wrote called The Ancient Egyptian Gods, Volume 1, page 308 is where it starts. Okay, so check that out, and you're going to see where the transformations of Ra, and you're going to see the story about Shu and Tefnut. God was alone, or the creator was alone, and then he spat out Shu. He coughed Shu and spat Tefnut, and then Geb and Nut, and then Wasir, Osset. Everybody appears on the scene, and then Shu and Tefnut vanish. His eye goes out and search for them and comes back and finds his eye replaced. And then he weeps and he cries. And then from those tears, humanity comes about, which are the Egyptians themselves. And they are named the Remich. All right. So you're going to see all of that good story in there. All right. And then some. Okay. So check that out. All right. So anyway, I don't want to make this too long. I just want to clarify, one, why I posted the post again. Two, in hopes that I hope that people will correct themselves and govern themselves accordingly in terms of we don't have to say Tamahu means white people. In fact, there's let me show this real quick here again. Here. Now the Egyptians are over here on the left. And so their main neighbors to the south, it will be the Nehesiu. To the east would be the Amu. And to the west, it would be the Tamahu. So they're describing their intimate neighbors, the ones that are adjacent to their homeland. Okay? They have other names for other nations and other people that are further away from them, but these are their immediate neighbors. These are the neighbors who are adjacent to their homeland of Kemet. Okay, the kingdom. Okay, so I just want everyone to understand. So when it comes to Europeans and white people, there is a misnomer of the Tamahu. These are Libyans. These are people who were west of Kemet. And there's two groups, the Tamahu and then the Chehinu. Okay, and the Chehinu were further south in the west. Okay, I just want everyone to understand that. So when you hear someone refers to Europeans or whites as Tamahu, make sure you point this video out, point out my post, or you yourself investigate and break it down. Explain it to them. Explain it to them that, wait a minute, my sister, wait a minute, my brother, the Tamahu are the Libyans. They're not the Europeans. The Egyptians were not referring to or describing anybody in Europe. Okay? And especially nobody who was white. All right? That's not, the word for white is hedge. Like the white crown of Kemet is the word hedge. The red crown is called desheret, and the white crown is hedge. That's the word for white, hedge. White, bright, to light up. That's hedge, not Tamahu. All right, so I just want everyone to understand that. All right, and I think the point has been made, and I can't leave without also showing you all this. So, because the Egyptians themselves called themselves the Remich, and because there are a lot of people who are maybe unfamiliar with this, I designed made a design to emphasize this point. And this is exactly what Heka Apparel is all about. It's thinkware. And so there's a lot of symbols and teaching in the designs that are made that I've created for apparel, so people could wear as conversation starters, as things that people can learn from. And so here's another one entitled The Remich, the Emanations of Ra. Okay, and so this is how their name looks in the glyphs. And as you can see, I have the eye and the tears coming. The emanations are coming forth from the eye, creating the people and their name, Remich. Okay, so pick yourself up a t-shirt, a hoodie, a sweatshirt, or whatever, or buy one for your friends, loved ones. Spread the information. These are teaching tools. All right, so support, and you can find that at hekaapparel.com. Just want to let everyone know that. All right, so I'll take a moment and look at the comments and see if there's any questions. Like I said, I try not to make these videos long, and so I'm gonna kind of quickly go over it. So if you have a question now, if you already typed it and asked it, please retype it now. That way I don't have to scroll and spend too much time. But again, I do want to say dua for those who are tuned in and watching. I know today's Sunday. It's the evening. I'm not sure if there's football games on or whatnot, but, you know, I appreciate anybody who's taking the time out to hang out and tune in. Okay. So I'm scrolling back up and I'm just going to kind of briefly go through it. I'm looking for questions here. All right. Let's see. And I would do a shout out, but like I said, that would roll call shout out. This would take too long. Okay. Folashade asks, he's RTCH. I don't see the M. Okay, that's a good question. Let me go back to, okay, well, I could leave this on the screen. Okay, the reason why you don't see the M is because the scribes, even within the scribal standards, they did not put the M here. Now, like I said, when you're learning the language, part of the lessons that you'll come across and you'll learn is that the scribes carved the glyphs in what's called square or rectangular quadrants. Okay, and they fit the glyphs within these quadrants for aesthetic reasons. And certain words that was used so I guess so many times, so profoundly or prolifically, I should say, that they used abbreviated forms. So if you are on Facebook, if you join our Facebook group, I can show you the full spelling of the word as attested in text itself. Okay, but what I'm showing on the screen and what was seen here is the standard way that they started to spell it. Okay, the same way that when we say Unk Wudjau Seneb, the Remich themselves, or the scribes, they didn't spell that all the way out. They just used the three symbols that spelled those words: the Unk, the Ja symbol, pestle, and then the folded cloth representing the whole word Seneb. They didn't spell it all the way out. Okay, so it depends on the text and things, and this and for you to even know that that's occurring, you had to become more and more familiar with the language and the text. All right, but that's a good question. The M is there in the fuller spelling, not in this particular rendition. All right, so just wanted to let you all know that. So I'm scrolling down. Okay, Christopher says, could you give, let's see, hopefully it'll allow me to see the rest of his comment, and it will not. But what I can see, he says, could you give one of these discussions on the Myrna Patah Stela if the word Israel is found in? Okay, that's a separate thing. Okay, yeah, that's so he's putting a request. All right, it's not a problem either. Okay, so let's go. Amin Ma'at Ra. Oh, okay. Let's see. I'm scrolling down again. I'm just trying to see if there's any questions. Okay. Sanvasa says, what is behind the knees of the next group of people? Okay, let me go back. He said the knees, so I'm assuming he's talking about, I'm not quite sure. Now, Brother Vasa, if you're asking about where my cursor is, these things here, these are fringes. These are fringes coming off of their clothing. Okay, so I'm not sure if that's what you're asking me about, but these are simply fringes, a part of their attire. Okay, those are not glyphs. Okay, so let's keep going. I'm scrolling down. Okay, Mika, Florida asks, okay, so what did they call white people? That's the thing, they didn't. All right, that's a good question, and that's something that people have to understand. Number one, all right, remember this. Listen, our notion today of races, where we separate race by two colors and then continents, we say black people, white people, and then we jump to continents. We say Asians, and then we say Native Americans. Those are like the four main, racial classifications that we use today. We always have to remember that that classification did not exist in ancient and historical times. That is a modern construct. Our social classification system of race is a modern construct. Okay? Because number one, white people that we call white people are not really the color white. And people that we refer to ourselves as black people, we're not actually the color black. Because if you look at African Americans as, you know, the politically correct term, it's a whole range of skin colors from what we call red bones all the way to the chocolatey, the dark chocolate, as people would say. Okay, but that whole spectrum will be like, we'll just call it black people. Okay, but my point is that is a modern construct. That is a social construct, and it's modern. The ancient Egyptians did not have such a concept at all. At all. Okay? So I say that in answering your question, that they didn't have a designation for white people because they didn't have a concept like ours of white people. So their criteria for distinguishing groups of people was not based on the same criteria that we use today to distinguish people. So let me repeat that, all right, because I need for everybody to understand that. Okay, our criteria that we use today to separate people and to identify people is not the same criteria that was used in ancient times by the ancient Egyptians or the Remech. They didn't have the same criteria. They did differentiate people, but they didn't use the same criteria that we use today. Their criteria was more in line with what we call today cultural, where they identified your weaponry, they identified your dress code, they identified your behavior, and your mode of survival, your mode of production. In other words, whether you were a pastoralist society, whether you were nomadic, whether you use throw sticks as weapons, whether you use bows and arrows as weapons, and things of that nature. Okay, this is why they call them the Amu, who are the Asiatic desert dwellers. Okay, so they described people based on their mode of production and those kinds of things, and they visually represented them distinctly based on their customary national dress codes and things like that. All right, so it wasn't about skin color for them in terms of differentiation. Although they weren't blind, none of the Egyptians were blind, and they could see differences, but that just wasn't their criteria for designating ethnicities and different, groups of people. Okay, so I just want to make that clear. But that's an excellent question, and I want people to really understand and get that. All right, so let's see. Next, Emiket, question by someone on top. Okay, yeah, I addressed that already. Dua for that. Let's see. All right, let's keep going. Let's keep going. And I guess I'm at the end. Okay, so hopefully everyone, benefited from this. This video is brief. Like I said, I'm not, these short videos, you can't really teach. I teach classes. I have courses, a beginner's level and a more advanced level dealing strictly with grammar. And in those classes, I always talk about cultural things such as this, where I can elaborate and demonstrate and show more things. But I try to keep these videos short. And I haven't even been doing a good job at that, keeping them short. But my goal is to keep these short, bite-sized, informative, and spark the conversation and investigation. Don't take my word for it now. Look into these things. All right. And if you have questions, I'll do my best to answer them, and the whole nine. But based on what I said so far, let me summarize. So again, I'm coming off of my post, and I'm speaking about the word Tamahu. Gerald Massey guy has it wrong, and there's people in our community that are following after Gerald Massey's mistakes and errors, and therefore our people are making these same mistakes and same errors, and we have to clean it up. Okay, so let's throw away the word Tamahu in reference to Europeans. Okay, the Egyptians themselves, they did not refer to continents like that. They don't even have a name for the continent of Africa. Okay, they didn't think in a continental way. To the Egyptians, and this is another thing, this is a side note. To the Egyptians, remember, what do we call the Egyptian culture in general? We call it the Nile Valley civilization. And the word I want to pay attention to is valley. It's the Nile Valley. And what is a valley? A valley is a strip of land that is flat in nature, that is sandwiched between hills. That's what a valley is. It's the low area between two hills on the sides. And so it's the Nile Valley. And what is the Nile? It's a big river, a big, long river. And so we call it the Nile Valley culture or the Nile Valley civilization. And so what are we saying? We're saying it's the river culture, the river civilization. And so to the Egyptians, their land, their home was the flat part of that area. And so they referred to it as Ta. And the glyph that's used for Ta is a flat strip of land. Surrounding that are hills and deserts on the left and right. And then at the top of their territory, actually at the bottom where the river empties out, it's the Mediterranean Sea. And at the top of their land, which is to us south, was the what we call today cataracts, which are really the rapids because of the rocks that are there, like small waterfalls, rapids, and you can't sail a ship across those things. Okay, that was at the southern border for them. So we have to remember, they didn't have a name for the entire continent of Africa. All right, they didn't have a name for the entire continent of Europe. So they wouldn't call anything European. Okay, I just want everyone to understand that. There was no concept of Europe to them. There was no concept of Africa to them. They had neighbors, they named them. They interacted with people, whether they were enemies and they were warring against them or they were trading with them. They had names of those people. And names, ethnic names, are of two kinds. And I went over this in a separate video. One is called endonym, and the other one is exonym. Endonym are the names that people name themselves. Exonymic are the ones that others name for them. So the Rimage used two. Like, for example, the let's say the Hittites. You know, if you find that in the Akkadian or Hittite, the Egyptians use a word that's very close to that. And likewise, foreign countries referred to the Egyptians by the name that they called themselves. Okay? So we have to understand these things. It wasn't a continental thing like that. All right? So I just want everyone to understand that. All right? As much as we would like for these folks right here, as a matter of fact, you don't see the Tamahu. They will be on this right hand side. It's out of the picture here, but right here will be the Amu. So you have the four Egyptians, 1, 2, 3, and 4. This fourth one is faded. All right, the color has faded off. It washed away because actually this particular spot here became water. This is from water damage. All right, if you look at the history of this particular artifact, it has some water damage done to it. So you see this one is washed away a little bit, which is one of the Amu. So you have 4 of the Remich, and then 2 of the Amu, and then you see the third one over here, and then the fourth one is right outside the image here. Okay, so let's see if I can get one of the other ones up just to show you some more pictures from that same tomb. All right, so this is a little extra. And let's see here. Okay, here is let's see if I can get this one in here. I want you all to see, let's see if I have one of the Tamahu. And I believe, see how clear it's going to be. Okay, hopefully you all can see that. Okay, so hopefully you all can see that. But this is further down, and you can see the damage that was done. Okay, to this. All right, so but this is how it looks recently. Now when it was first excavated, it was in beautiful condition. It was in pristine condition. All right, so there's facsimiles and things that are available that you can seek out. All right, and also, as I said, it's not just in this one particular tomb. All right, so just real quick, let's just see anybody else here real quick. Let's see. Yeah, again, I don't want to make this too long, so I'm going to wrap it up. Let's see. Peace family, be sure to check out. Okay, we may need especially go through how Egyptians viewed and named their neighbors. Okay. All right. So, yeah. Anyway, so again, I appreciate, I'll say dua for everyone who's tuned in. Hopefully you benefited from this. Leave me a comment. Join our Facebook group. That's the best place to have really good dialogue, because in a comment section on videos, it's hard to follow the comments because the videos, they timestamp. And so if I go back and watch the video, I may never see your comment because it's stamped to a particular time in the video. Okay, so remember that. Just join our Facebook group and you can, spark questions and conversations there. Okay, so Chuck Morgan says, question. The Tamahu look as if they have tattoos. Is that accurate? Yes, they're drawn with some kind of artwork on their bodies. And this is what you see. Where my cursor is here, this is what you're looking at. All right, so that's a good question. The Tamahu were depicted with tattoos or some kind of bodily artwork. Okay, we simply call them tattoos or something. Okay, all right. Okay, so anyway, I will close out and just remember, and here again, here are them all in a row. And again, those names are Remich, the Amu, the Nehesu, and the Tamahu. Remich, Amu, Nehesu, Tamahu. These are the 4 ethnic groups. And what's interesting is that these 4 groups are in the Egyptian heaven. So, people are saying, using these words as if they're not even going to be in heaven with them. But anyway, that's a whole nother story. But it's just interesting to me. It's funny. But these 4 nations are in, when I say heaven, what I mean is the Duat. This is the 5th hour. And see, if I were to keep reading this, if I were to keep translating and reading this for you all, it goes further to say, as a matter of fact, let me show you this word here, Sekhmet. This is deity Sekhmet. And for the Remich, it says that they were created from the tears of Ra. But for all of the rest of them, they're saying that for the Amu and the Tamahu, they are protected by the deity Sekhmet. who is going to do what? Who is going to protect their souls. Okay, this word here. Now, let me see if I can blow that up. Now, you can see it here where my cursor is. I'm circling it. Matter of fact, let me show you Sekhmet. This is the word Sekhmet right here. Sekhmet, the determinative of her. She's a lion, a lioness deity. And this is her kneeling. This is a lion-headed deity kneeling with the solar disc on her head right here. And prior to that is the word Sekhmet. So this is her. And it says that she's going to redeem their souls. Ba Chin. See, Ba, the word Ba is right here. And it's talking about the Amu. Okay? And when it comes to the Nehesiu, is said to be created a little differently. And, maybe we'll do a video, another separate video on that. All right. So anyway, just wanted to give everybody the information on that. Last call for these questions here. So hopefully, Chuck, that was answer your question. Let's see. Heaven, how did the Tamahu get to the duat with calcified pineal glands and no melanin? Right. See, once you understand this, then a lot of other things will kind of fall to the wayside as well. And I just want everybody to just got to do better. When we know better, we do better. All right. So with that, I appreciate everybody hanging out, and enjoy the rest of your evening. And who knows, may do another video tonight, because like I said, what sparks these videos is, when I peruse, Facebook, and or I get asked questions in my inbox or inside of our Facebook group, things or some, things I would like to share. And so the night is still early. So anyway, dua for tuning in, and I will see you all next time.